Okay, the internet is so weird. Alright, so this video, I'm gonna start talking about bilocation because in my last video, I went and I used the term bilocation in my title, that I had this experience of bilocation. So, somebody in the comments asked me to elaborate on the story of it. And so, I thought to myself, oh, let me go make sure that, I mean, sometimes a person sometimes a person has a way of using a term before they really should be using it. So I just sat down today and said, well, let me go see what the internet says bilocation means. And because if I make a video about what happened with me the other night, I don't want to go be using that term if that's not really officially what it is or was. And in this is so weird. So I look up bilocation and I'm seeing all this stuff that pops up concerning saints that allegedly bilocated, like Saint so and so, she showed up at the guy's bedside, Saint this, Saint that. And I'm like, oh boy. And so then I thought, okay, the reason I use the term bilocation is because of my own experience with how and where I first learned about that whole phenomena, which is where this book comes in. Yeah, The Nine Faces of Christ. Where is this camera? Oh my god, can't see. Is the camera on? Yes, it is. How can I get it? Okay. Here's this book. I went and dug it out because um, because I thought, okay, well, my personal understanding of bilocation comes from partly because of what I read in these pages of this book, which I read in sorry about the informality, but maybe that's gonna help keep it a secret because, okay, when I was in the Ramtha school from 1990 to 94, this was one of the, like, we had books that were like required reading in order to help us get the most out of what was being taught at the school. Okay, so this is just a book, hardcover book, Nine Faces of Christ. So when I thought to myself, okay, this person asked me to describe the bilocation, now, you know how it is when you read a book and you remember certain parts about it throughout the years, and so personally you adopt a certain definition within your own mind, and now here I am online blabbing out the term bilocation because of what I seem to recall, and I would have to flip through all these pages to find it exactly, but so I thought, okay, well, let's go online and see if anybody else is giving a book review or talking about bilocation in terms of this book. So first of all, on YouTube, there's nobody doing a book review on Nine Faces of Christ, okay? So I thought, oh boy, don't get me reading this like the other book. It's like, it can't be a rare book, don't tell me, right? So then, so I go look up the book, The Nine Faces of Christ. You just type it in the search engine, right? I use a Brave search engine. So look, so this is so weird because look what pops up on Amazon. Initiations of Joseph Bar Joseph in the Eternal Religion, Nine Faces of Christ. It's showing the book. Paperback, $7,000 fucking dollars. That's impossible, I said to myself. I mean, what? So there's a screenshot of this book, allegedly, on Amazon for $7,000. That's impossible. So then, this is fucking hilarious. Now, see, the thing is about this book and about the Ramtha school and some of the stuff being taught was that allegedly he's teaching the great works to humanity as a whole. The public can pay and go to this particular school and learn the great works. What is that? And this book describes stuff that allegedly Joseph Bar Joseph, we're not going to say he was Jesus, but what kind of different trainings that that's not it, that he had, this Joseph Bar Joseph guy in this book, to learn how to do the, I guess you would call it the ascension process, and not have to die. And the reason I went to the Ramtha school, I would say to people, I said, why are you going to go to that school? I says, well, because it's teaching you how to not have to die a physical death. Well, I didn't, I mean, sometimes I say things lightly just to say them because I know people are going to tell me I'm full of it or something like that. So I just say it lightly, but that's exactly the truth of, like, it seemed like a very logical, practical thing that the physical body doesn't, and one time long ago, it actually didn't have to physically die and turn to dust on the earth, that you could you could vibrate the speed of light and take the body with you. So nowadays, that's being talked about, but what cracked me up, I'm trying to find the thing. Okay, look, so I'm thinking, you don't tell me this book is worth all this money. Okay, so then I went and I found this link to this particular site that's selling the same book, Nine Faces of Christ, for $8, right? I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds more like it. And what it says here, this is the name, Thrift Books. So what it says here is hardcover, very good condition, and then down here it goes, hang on. See all 10 editions from $7. Now, I found out with that other book that I read, the World Within a World, that people were falsely advertising it was for sale and that there weren't any copies of it. Look at this. So it goes, it says, Nine Faces of Christ, temporarily unavailable. 0 people are interested in this title. We receive fewer than 1 copy every 6 months. But it's listing that here's a copy for $16. So anyway, I'm just saying, if somebody hearing this video wants to get it, allegedly there's all these copies being sold. You would hope that this is a true story and that frickin' Amazon ad for $7,000, because gee, would I sell this for $7,000? I just might. That's so frickin' weird. Why is that happening? Here's another copy, it says for $18. Oh boy, that's just mad. Okay, so the reason I'm talking about this is because I maybe had an experience of a certain type of bilocation the other night. And because I don't want to be accused of saying something that isn't true. See, look, and I looked at this listing has been removed, or this item is not available. So they advertise it on some of these sites, and then they tell you it's not available. Okay, so the reason I said by location was because I remembered when I was reading this book back in the 90s that there were different kinds of bilocation, and that this Joseph Bar Joseph guy was training distinctly to learn how to do these things. That the process of just ascending or vibrating the speed of light, taking your body with you, like Ramtha claims he did. He said he actually left his body, took it with him, and disappeared. No one saw him. He was on that rock for 7 years. He said he did it 200 times before he demonstrated it in front of his people, which was a lot of us back 35,000 years ago. That when he finally did leave Earth, he took his body with him molecularly all the way zoom. And that would have been the ultimate bilocating, where you not bilocate, single, where you leave totally. So what I remember when I was reading this book was that it seemed like the training was that you would learn different types of bilocation. Like one would be where you would kind of what I had happen the other night, where spontaneously I was visiting these two people, and they may have been unaware or not remember that I visited them. Another one would be where, like these saints, where they showed up in the person's room and they communicated what they needed to communicate. They were aware that they were doing it, and the person saw them. And this was like at someone's bedside before they died. Then there's another bilocation where you leave, where your spirit body goes to another location, and that person sees you in the flesh and thinks you're actually there on the street, walking down the street. Oh, I saw you walking down the street. And you're saying, no, I didn't. No, I really wasn't there, but I projected my second body went and projected and looked solid. Okay, so I'm just kind of describing the way my own memory remembers what the heck was in this book about if you were to discipline yourself and practice learning how to do these things, that there's different stages of learning how to do them. It's just like learning an instrument or something. You don't just start playing the whole song. You learn little by little how to do the process, and then the final experience would be for me to be here now, and then to take my whole body to another location and disappear from this place and actually go there. Now, allegedly, these aliens, oh my God, I hope whoever's listening, allegedly they can, the advanced, I have to call it biotechnology, because technology indicates machines and shit, but like the advanced type of biotechnology would be able to transport you, Star Trek style, where you dematerialize and show up somewhere else. To me, that's like the ultimate bilocating. But bi indicates a split. Like what happened with me the other night was I was definitely here, but I went there to the point where, oh my God, where my skull, my brain felt this pressure, a pleasant pressure pushing one side of my head one way and the other way, kind of like if you would take a ripe peach, you know how there's a crease in the peach and you open it and it splits. I felt that process, that pressure happening in my brain, and that's when the term bilocating came to me. There was also a breathing thing that was happening. I didn't think I was sleeping either. And then I paid a visit to James Rink and the Metallic Man, the people that were on the video that I was talking about. And the gist of that experience was that I was in the same room with James and the other guy. James turned around and saw me, but he had a perplexed look on his face, and then he just turned back around and said goodnight and laid back down. It was this mattress I'm on with the white sheet, and then I looked at the foot of the bed, and that Metallica man, I forget his first name, he was there. And then when I focused, I didn't even see his face because it was dark. But when I focused on him, he reached his arm out and shook my hand and just joined hands with me, which told me that he saw me paying a visit. All I was doing in this experience spontaneously is I wasn't even trying, because I fell asleep during the interview. I didn't even know who these people were. But something in me had paid a visit to both of those guys. And when the Metallica Man guy, when his arm went out and shook my hand, it was like, oh good, he sees me and he understands why I'm here. And I'm telling you, this is beyond any personality meeting someone at a freaking conference. This is beyond. And there was a certain kind of breath coming out of my chest with a certain sound coming out. I'm not going to repeat it. So after I shook his hand, I was back in my room. It was dark, it was night, and the sound was still coming out of my chest. A very shallow breath with sound. And awareness of how the two parts of my brain had this pressure splitting them in half, meaning that one half of my brain was going to this visit and the other half was staying here. That's the only reason I call it bilocation, because that term came to me, that something in my and I wasn't trying to do this, jeepers. I was only trying to listen to a freaking interview. And I didn't even hear the interview because I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, the interview was over, and that's when this experience happened, where I met these people. So there's some kind of magnetic draw that gets you to do this unless you do it intentionally. Yes, I had an experience where I bilocated intentionally out of desire. This was back in the 90s, because not only, like, I read this book, I was in the Rumpus School, but also Robert Monroe's material was coming out. His book's coming out, Journeys Out of the Body, and I was practicing some of the exercises he had. So, because I was living in the Northwest, I didn't like it. I mean, it was cold and damp, and so I was kind of an avid student of the Rumpus School, because the rest of my daily life, I had a job, I lived in with this old lady, I took care of her, I had a room at the top of her house, so I was practicing all these out-of-body stuff, this and that. And, I had a bunch of different experiences with it. But this one, the other night, was totally like, all I can say is that there must have been some particular reason why that person in the interview, which, by the way, after this happened, I'm describing, the next day, I turned on the frickin' interview to listen. I listened to the whole thing. He's talking about this, talking about that, and he kept talking about the domain. This group and the aliens and the whole thing, man. I'm like, just when I told myself I wasn't going to try to figure anything out, this happens. So it's kind of like Mr. God is giving me this experience too, to say, well, there's clues in who this person is and who this group known as the domain is. That's the name I made up for myself, Ruby Domain. Oh my God, I'm cracking up, like, what is going on, right? But anyway, I'm just saying, nobody's reading this book on YouTube. I ain't gonna read the whole thing. But apparently it's a rare book, and Amazon's saying it's $7,000. That's crazy, that's ridiculous. So whoever, maybe the person in comments that asked me to describe what happened, I think it's in the pages of this book where, and it's written like a novel, where this Joseph Bar Joseph guy describes the processes by which he learned how to bilocate. And the gist of the Ramtha School was that the human body can learn to do that, and there's a way to learn how to do that deliberately. And these are the abilities that have been withheld and then relegated to only the saints can do it, kind of thing. Okay, so, and again, if you look up bilocation online, you'll come up with some interesting stuff, like, but I'm sure there's other people in the last 20 years that have written more about it. And by the way, before I made this video, after I listened to the James Rink interview with Metallic Man there, up pops Michael Salla, Dr. Salla, doing an interview with Dan Winter. And it just so happened that Dan was talking about this sort of stuff as well, in relationship to how the fourth seal, the heart, people call it chakra, I call it seal, but how the emotional body plays a part in activating the physical body to be able to do these fantastic things. Okay, so, which explains why I found myself spontaneously visiting these two guys, because I want to meet them. It's like, because, this online business is so crazy, because, James knows who I am, the other guy, like, you meet people online, it's a one-way street, and I don't go out of my way to meet people, because I'm telling you, the social image of who somebody is sometimes it's not even near as gratifying. So in other words, when this thing happened the other night where I shook the guy's hand, and James's reaction was funny. He saw my presence there, but he didn't grok it the way that I meant it. It was so much more fulfilling. And I'll end this video by saying a friend of mine, Janet, wrote a book about antimatter many years ago, and she used to have meetings at her house, and she said this. She said, in the future, life is going to be to where you will walk in a room and you'll meet somebody, and your energy fields will intercourse everything right then and there. You will know that person more intimately than if you were to have sex with that person. That's what it's going to be like. That's what that experience was like the other night when I shook this guy's hand. It is way better than any social meeting, talking about this, talking about that. It's like you're meeting the actual energy frequency form of that individual without all the noise of the personality. That's why that was so satisfying. And you know, now that yeah, so I just want to say that because that is what's happening, and especially in this social world where there's all these conferences. Well, let's put it this way. You know, sexuality often comes into the picture when people feel like they got a connection with somebody. It turns into be a big flirtatious situation. So when you're beyond that, and it's hard for some people, like when I was younger, for myself, for many years, that was how I first got to know someone, was sexually. Boom. That could be a little dangerous. This, you know, now that I'm nice and old and everything, I don't, you know, you don't just, it's like, I ain't gonna go flirting around with, like, I'm everybody's grandmother, so I ain't gonna go flirting around. And that's sometimes hard to get used to. And it's not that I'm not gonna have a partner. It's right now I haven't been in a relationship in a long time, I'll just say it straight up. But what's more fulfilling is to have what happened like the other night where I shook this person's hand. Because when I listened to the interview that James had with this guy, it was like, oh, you know, I wasn't like flaming impressed except for the subjects he was bringing up, like China Lake. You know, my brain is trying to put stuff together about my personal history and what I have amnesia about. So he's mentioning China Lake and all this kind of stuff, and then blah, 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 blah. So I'm just kind of saying that. So anyway, I hope that that says something about bilocation, and maybe I shouldn't use that term. Maybe I should have just said astral travel or something, but my definition of, yeah, there's good astral and bad astral. So let's just say my second body. I don't often call it my astral body because the second body can go out to the void, outer space. It's like your real body can leave the planet, but the astral body seems to stay in the planet zone there. And if you read Robert Monroe's material, when he talks about a ball of thought being transferred from one person to the other, and he talks about the M band around Earth, where all this noise, like how he traveled out of body, and he would go like over New York City or something like that, and the closer he'd get to the surface of the planet, the noisier it freaking got, you know, and stuff like that. Very interesting material. So yeah, there's all these different realms. So anyway, and I think I said it all. Okay, that's enough. 24 minutes. 9 Faces of Christ. Go look it up. I don't know, maybe buy it. Okay, hope that was helpful to somebody. I think I'll upload it. I don't know. I'll listen to it. I wanted to make this a clean video and kind of get to the point. And I still didn't say everything about what happened with me in that experience, but that was the gist of it. The metallic man acknowledged, he saw my presence there, my essence there, and shook my hand. The James Rink person in the thing looked over confused at me and said goodnight and turned away. And I have more to say about that because there's I've had recently these astral attacks. Oh my God, I had green hands try to fucking kill me the other night. So I've been having all these different kind of things happen throughout the years, you know, and it's like, geez, you wake up and you're still alive, you know. But there's a difference between, you know, this gnarly stuff and then this beautiful communications that occur when you seemingly travel out of body. When it happens without trying is another interesting phenomenon, because you can go into these meditations and try to do these things, and that can produce a lot of interesting stuff as well. But here I am, like, trying to forget about it by watching movies and eating frickin' ice cream. It's like, well, I'm not gonna try to figure it out anymore. Like, I'm just gonna stay away from these realms at all. I'm just gonna get normal and go work all day and come back and drink wine. You know what I mean? I'm trying to forget about it, and then this happens anyway. So it's really fun. Life is fun. So that's all I want to say. Okay, bye.